Welcome to the 8 Billion Project, where we're on a mission to make an impact by discovering and sharing the purpose of every person on this planet. I'm your host, Liza, Florida. Enjoy today's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 8 Billion Podcast. I am your host, Liza, Florida, and today we've got something very special. This is the first time in 8 Billion history I have a return guest, and she is very special. But without further ado, let me do an introduction. With over 17 years in the personal transformation industry, Kristina is a truly remarkable teacher, talented international speaker, entrepreneur, artist, philanthropist, and mother of two. She's an author of Transformational Quest 7 Days to Happiness and Live by Your Own Rules. She was also recognized as one of the top 10 influential people online, making a difference in the world today, and was awarded the Influencers for Change by the Global Impact Creators. In April of 2023, Kristina releases her brand new book, Becoming Flawesome. In her book, Kristina shares her own journey from being on top of a personal growth empire like Mindvalley to stepping aside, conscious uncoupling with her husband, and walking her path towards being more honest with herself. Welcome, Kristina Ma, back to the 8 Billion Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for having me back. And I'm really honored to be the first guest to come back.
I know. Yes, this is so exciting. It's just been at least maybe a few months, but I'm pretty sure so much has transformed and transpired since that time that we spoke.
Yeah, I think life just keeps going on and on and on, which is kind of good, but also scary.
Right? And now here you are. You're releasing your third book, Becoming Flawesome.
Well, in a book format, it's my first book. I have courses, yes, because I've been in personal growth and transformation industry for a really long time. So, of course, I have courses, I have taught, but as a book, which is a different format, that's the first one.
So, of course, this is very transformational for you.
Yes. I have written the book actually last year. So when we did an interview, I already had the book, but quite a lot of things changed. Yes, I wanted to self-publish, and now I went for the big publisher because I thought, it's my first baby. I should give it the best I can. So yeah, a lot of things have changed.
No, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, when we did our first interview, you did have the book coming out. And so things literally change in the next, in months. And it's definitely, it's a great call to go with the big publisher, especially when you're launching a book a big launch like this.
So yes, things have changed, and I'm still about to launch a book.
Well, congratulations on this. And no matter how long it takes, right? There's always transformation that happens on such a individual level in order for us to be birthing such big projects like this. I myself have even went from podcast to birthing another online a platform, which is really big for myself. So I of course understand what you're going through. But in which case, one of the things that I wanted to ask you you've released courses. Now, how is this so? Of course, for obvious reasons, courses are different from a book. How long did it actually take you to come up, write this book and the inspiration behind it?
I am a creative person, and creative people work in a very funny way. They walk around the apartment all day, whining and moaning and complaining about something, and then suddenly they feel it and they sit down and they start writing, and they do their work in a fraction of the time that they actually dedicate to doing the work. I have been a creator since a very young age. I studied in art school, so it's always been my pattern. Of course, I'm generalizing. I'm sure there are writers who do it differently, and I've talked with a lot of writers due to my business. Of course, I've talked to authors and writers before, and I know different people write books differently. Even in my case, being an entrepreneur who has created a platform for personal growth and transformation authors, I've heard people say you have to write a book. It's part of your business model. Not even that. You have to write the book. You are in that business. You have to write the book. It's so good for monetizing your business. There's all these things that you have to do. Do an online course. Everybody could do an online course. But it is true. I don't want to argue with that, but it is not my path. And if you think that my book is about being you, well, my book is about being me. For those who are going to be reading it, it's going to be about being them. But because this book is about finding a path back to you, coming to peace with what you are, then one thing I knew for a fact, I couldn't follow convention. Not because I wanted to be obstinate, but because, and in some places I do follow convention. I mean, I write in an understandable English, not in my own language. So I do follow conventions, but I wouldn't follow convention just because that's how things are done. A very simple example, when I was writing the book, I was writing it to be self-published. So of course I didn't care about a lot of rules. And then when I decided to go for a big publisher, one of the first comments the publisher said, she said, could you please write a proper introduction to a book? Because that's not how we write introductions. Introduction has to have, explanation. What do you expect out of the book? Who is it meant for? What kind of problem it solves? All the regular stuff. And I said, no. And then my publisher asked why. I said, because a book is a journey. Can you imagine you take Lord of the Rings and in the introduction it says in chapter 5, the Fellowship of the Rings is going to fall apart and Boromir is going to be killed and whatnot. And she laughed at that and she said, I get it, but can you at least write why you can't write a proper introduction? I said, that I can. So you see, I do not rebel just for the sake of rebelling. I rebel when it doesn't make sense to me. And so, of course, when people told me I have to write a book, I said, yes, I know I have to. And I know it's a good business model, but I don't feel like it. Not like I don't feel like sitting down and writing. I just don't feel that it's coming yet. And I've learned that when I transitioned from being a marketer to being an author, I've learned the value of being truly you. As a marketer, I followed slightly different rules. You worked because you had to. You found the inspiration, you found the motivation, you found the beauty in whatever you were selling. So it was a little different. When you're an author, especially if you're an author who talks about authenticity, then being actually true to how you feel, to what you experience is super important. So I wrote the book the same way as I did anything. I was just walking around and moaning for years until one day I felt it was coming and I sat down, I wrote it. It's like, it's when you're pregnant, you can walk around with that big belly, but it will come when it comes.
Oh, no, absolutely. And what was really interesting when you said that, it's the same thing that actually happened to myself. I had always been like, okay, the next natural step to do is start the online platform. And how is this going to look? Because online memberships should have pre-recorded content. And I said, no, I'm a creator myself, just like what you were saying. This can be anything that I want it to be. We are creators. We create, with our world changing so much, a lot of the blueprint is starting to change. We are creating these blueprints. And by what you were saying, with your book being about you being you fully authentically, the rules kind of go out of the window. It's like, even for me, like Kristina, like I was even saying, you would think that with myself launching a platform, I'd be on social media at certain times, like plugging in. And then there were days, I just got guidance and I just felt like it's okay to be off for 4 days. And I just have to trust the process that's developing, because it's not even just, there's something alchemizing in myself to try and see that there's different ways of doing things. And how do we change the world when we can't even be examples of that? So it's such a beautiful thing. Like, I got full body chills when you said that, because I love that rebel in you.
I will say something a little bit maybe unpopular, but I think that the blueprints and the tutorials and how-tos and, all these 10 rules to be successful, to be an influencer on Instagram, whatnot, they are actually for people who... I will say something unpopular, who are either lazy or want easy routes. easy ways because they just teach me. Let me follow the pattern. I'll put the work in. It's easy to put the hours in if you have the tutorial in front of you. If you think of any area, there is mastery, which is very often following blueprints, following the routines, following the straight line. But then there is genius, and genius is never ordinary. So if you think, let's be very superficial. If you think of what's the beauty standard, a lot of women look exactly the same because there's a beauty standard. They do exactly the same procedures on their face and their hair and everything, and then you can't you can't tell one from another because they look the same. Yet the most memorable actresses, models, singers are the ones who have something odd about them, who are different.
Yeah,
and they make it big.
Right.
They make it big because people want memorable. They don't want to copy another clone of another successful story. They want the unique you. Well, that's what I believe in.
No, and it's very true. That's what I'm saying is it's interesting how we're doing this, and much of what you're saying is actually what's happening to myself as this journey unfolds for myself, right? Like we're unique. We all are creators, but of course, like what you're saying, it's going to be unpopular because everyone wants to sell their blueprints. Everyone wants to be the expert in this is how you market. But yeah, we are moving into this really extraordinary time in human history where our full authenticity is actually what makes us so memorable and unique. And you're absolutely right. It's almost, in a way, if I think back at what you were saying between actors, actresses, or people that have become memorable for us, it's almost like them stepping into that space has made them almost timeless in any time in history for us to remember them and the things that they did.
And if we talk about books, imagine if all the classics of the past, and whether it's fiction or non-fiction, if they were all written by exactly the same model, the model that marketer told you that this is how you're supposed to write a book, wouldn't humankind actually have lost so much? Because anyone, if you read books, any author that you take two authors and compare them, they're very different. They put their soul in it. Nobody taught Shakespeare how to write. He figured it out. If somebody was telling him, dude, write like this,
yeah, he wouldn't.
He'd be one of the many, because I know that. Well, I love fiction very much. So I know that, for example, Jane Austen in the beginning of the 19th century, she was a trailblazer. She was writing in a different way. There were a lot of authors before her, and they were writing the conventional stuff. It never made it to our time.
Wow. Did you ever think of this as the author? Were you?
No.
Were these things that came into your thought process?
They just came as I was talking to you right now.
Right? Sometimes these things are like, wow, these downloads or what have you, the awareness that you have. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Now, one of the things that I was going to ask you, though, that publisher, did that end up becoming the publisher that published your book?
Yes, I'm working with them, but because we are still going back and forth on little details, I usually don't announce my publisher. It's a big publisher, and I'm very honored and very pleased and very happy. And I know that they are probably interested in me because of the background. Because they haven't seen the book yet.
All after she reads the book. She's like, it's okay.
But I have had this book read already by quite a few people, and I've had quite a few editors work on that, and I do love it myself. I believe in it myself, and I think it's. I can't wait. I feel proud to be coming out with it, and I know there will be haters, and I, in a way, pray for it, because if you don't elicit any emotions, then probably it's not hitting the right place.
No, you're absolutely right. A big part of standing strong and standing in your power as, of course, either a woman or even just as an individual is understanding that there are going to be people that are, like what you said, whether it's quote unquote haters or people that are going to have their own opinions about it. But that's for me exactly it. Like sometimes I'm about to do something bigger or, and to probably just stand in that presence and just allow it to come in and then not allow it to really either frazzle you or for you to at least stay the course with your vision. Because obviously you have very many things to say in here.
It's interesting. I just got, so I wrote the book, and then I had my first editor with whom we worked very closely, and she was very sweet. She always left like nice comments along the way if she liked something, if she found some idea really striking. So that was very encouraging. But I remember the first feedback was so scary. And then it was literally a few days ago that another bunch of editors had gone through that, and I had not seen any of that. So they were telling me, we're going to send you back the version with all the edit suggestions. You have to go through them and accept or reject, or the process, the usual process.
Yeah.
And I was so terrified. It was literally almost paralyzingly scary. And I was wondering. I actually thought about what is so scary about this process, because obviously I'm not bothered when English is my third language. When they correct some of my poor grammar, it doesn't bother me. When they change punctuation, it doesn't bother me. What was that was so scary? It wasn't even the idea that they might not like what I'm writing. And I realized that the thing that scared me so much that I could barely breathe was the idea that they might tear my baby into pieces, insist that I have to change something about it, and then it will stop being mine. It will become some kind of a mutant created by a whole lot of cooks in the kitchen. And I realized that this is my biggest fear. I want, no matter what you think about it, you like it or you don't like it, you disagree with my choice of words, or it's fine. I can live with that opinion. What I want the world to see is my creation and not some kind of mutant created by a whole lot of writers.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because then based upon what you're saying, I'm assuming that if they did ask and request for many changes, you would probably either find another publisher or self-publish it yourself. I mean, there's so much value in that lesson, right? It's us being able to stand in the face of like our voice and say, it matters, no matter how it's delivered, no matter how it might be received. My true expression of myself is valued, and I'm going to value it no matter maybe what even the biggest publishers are going to say. But I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure it works out in the end altogether, because knowing who you are, Kristina, you could probably stand in that place and just say, look, this is my voice and this is my true expression.
And that's important. It's important to mention that I am privileged, that I get to choose I have options. Of course, I have to be forward about that. We have built a big company, which is a big player in that industry. So obviously, publishers are more willing to talk to me. But I also think it's a little bit funny that we sell our soul so easy. I told my team and I told the publisher that I don't mind how you market it. I'm willing to be a monkey for you if you want me. When it comes to marketing, I will do what you ask me. But when it comes to my book, why can't you let me have it the way I envision it? Because the success of the sales depends on the marketing efforts. What's inside the book is the value that I want to give people.
Correct.
And here, of course, there is a vague possibility that it is horrible and people would want to ask for their money back, but I'm willing to take that risk. I want the world to see what I have created and not what marketing team insists that I have to create.
Yeah, correct. Because it's like just what you said in the beginning. The book is about you, but it also is about the person that's reading it. Because in here, you actually say there's a lot of reflection points, exercises, and experiments. Are you able to share one of your favorite on there? Would you prefer for the audience member to?
Yeah, I can share. It just comes to my mind first. That's why I'll share it. And I think that a huge part of what I'm teaching in my book, what I'm sharing in my book, is the idea that you're your first critic and you form your opinion about yourself, and then you train the world to treat you the way you show them how to treat you. So one of the exercises in my book is, I actually copied it from Dove, the soap company. They made an experiment. Of course, it won't have the same effect because I'll have to tell you the first part and the second part. But you could maybe, we maybe could do it in the class here as well, but I don't want to take up so much time. So basically, the exercise goes like this. You have to keep a diary of your self-talk for a day. So you can take a notebook or a diary along with you, and whenever you have a self-talk about yourself, you just write down whatever it is. For example, you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror. What do you tell yourself when you see your reflection? Most of the, statistics, research actually shows that 80% of women are not happy with what they see in the mirror. So what is that self-talk? For a lot of us, it would be, damn, why do I still have this, extra whatever kilos on me? And where is this gray hair coming from? Of course, when we talk to ourselves, we don't talk so nicely.
Yes, I agree.
Then you interact with people. Somebody says something to you, or you do a project, you do a presentation. What is your self-talk? How do you, let's say if you make a blunder, how do you talk to yourself? What do you say to yourself? For example, I learned to ride a bike last year. This year I was practicing it, and I was still very clumsy. So I remember that I used to, I would drive out of the house, right out of my house, and then I'd have some issues, and I was like, oh my God, why am I so stupid? Why can't I learn? That's the kind of self-talk I'm talking about. So that's the first part of the exercise. And I wish that I'd give you the second part of the exercise later, but I can't. In my when I do speeches, I usually ask people to write in during the speech and then exchange notes.
Yeah. Wow.
Because the second part is the important part. As the second part, in the evening, I would like you to give your diary, and I hope you're honest throughout the whole day, to give your diary to someone who you truly love or someone who loves you, maybe your partner, your lover, your child, your parent, and ask them to read out those entries to you and listen to it. And that's when the work happens, because you really get to reflect. You get to reflect, how does it feel to hear that being said to you from someone who is supposed to love you unconditionally, to have your back no matter what. And then you can reflect on the idea, how does it feel that that's exactly what you're saying to yourself. So if you go deeper with that train of thought, if you train the world how they treat you, how they take you, then your self-talk is not just about how well you feel about yourself, how good you feel about yourself. It's about how you present yourself to the world. A very funny analogy, maybe, if you've ever bought really sexy underwear and then you put it on, and of course you put a dress over your sexy underwear or whatever, and nobody can see it, but it's on, and you feel yourself so sexy, no matter what you wear over it, right?
Yes.
So it's the same with our opinion. It's like this sexy underwear. No matter, even if you put on a brave face, even if you put on professional clothing, if you do not believe in your message, if you don't believe in your professional qualities, if you don't believe in your value, no matter how you perform, what kind of tricks you learn, what you wear, who you talk to, it's going to translate. That message is going to always be visible.
100%. Kristina, it's so, as you were saying that this, I'm telling to the audience, that was super powerful, because when you were actually asking, and I would just kind of visualize and just thinking of the things that I go throughout the day, like saying subconsciously to myself, if I'm presenting who I am and just thinking about this is my thought process, yet you have so many people that you inspire, you're absolutely right. That really got me at the gut, or at the heart. I can only imagine if I had my son reading these, you know what I mean? Or some of the thought process that we actually.
Can you imagine telling to your son something like that?
Yes.
I have had situations where I go off stage and think that it didn't go well. If my child went off stage doing a performance and it didn't go well, would I tell them sorry. You're such a loser. Oh my God. Of course nobody liked you. Can you imagine saying that to someone that you love?
Well, I know. Well, it's really interesting because I kicked off, of course, the announcement of this platform that I have outside of this podcast. So I did this whole thing called Global Live Activation. What was interesting about that was the same thing happened. Like, I came across some tech issues. Then it was like throwing me off. And, here's the one thing that I always teach is like, always give yourself so much grace and love. And yet automatically when I finished it, I was like, wow, like I can't believe how bad I messed up. And I literally could feel it in my body. Yeah. And yet here, I'm of course teaching and sharing on transformation, but it's really deep rooted and subconscious in us. Like we have to be aware of these things moment after moment.
Well, my suggestion is just if you catch yourself saying something like that, just pause and rephrase it the way you would say it to someone that you love.
Right.
And say it to yourself. Because, the only person whose love you can reasonably expect is your own. Absolutely. Not even your lovers, your partners, your parents, your child's. Yeah, of course, it's good if your loved ones love you back, but you can't expect love from anyone as much as you can and should expect it from yourself.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The whole mission of course, 8 billion is about self-love and healing. And of course, different things come with that, like, right, awareness of these things. But that exercise that you're just talking about, if it's just one example of so many great gems in your book, it's going to be absolutely incredible.
Thank you. I do. I can't wait for the world to see it, and I'm probably going to listen mostly to those who like it. Well, you see, we are very funny with criticism. It's criticism can be to the point where it helps you to move on and to evolve, and then there is criticism that just makes you feel small.
Yeah, no,
and it's
absolutely.
super important to hear the one and to tune out of the other. It's very important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, what you're saying, in some of my notes she shares on how she lost herself and how she decided to reclaim her authenticity. I mean, could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I think to a certain degree, we all lose ourselves. So, and the reason though I asked this question though, Kristina, is because, like you built this amazing empire with vision, and then all of a sudden, like you step aside from it. Like, what are the things that people would say, well, how could someone like Kristina like lose herself? Or is there part of that you're able to share with the audience so that there's a connection there to say like, wow, even someone like Kristina could lose herself?
Well, the book starts with that. It starts with that, and with the idea that we lose ourselves. All of us lose ourselves. And of course, as I go deeper into the book, it becomes clear how it happens, the mechanics of how it happens. I think we're just too busy sometimes. We're too busy to pay attention. And in my case, it was exactly like that. I walked into the office and my friend told me, "Oh, I missed you." And I said to her, "I missed me too." And that was so shocking somehow. I heard myself saying that. And I stopped and I was shocked because I realized that I missed me out of my own life with exactly what you said. I had a very full life, business, husband, children, social life, parties, costume parties, not just any party, traveling and all of that. And while on the surface it looked like I was participating in my own life, I was missing the main character, myself. And that's of course it's a very abstract way to explain it, but how to explain it a little bit deeper would be probably that you make the motions of your life, but why are you doing that? Does that make you happy? Are you in the right place? You don't even stop, don't even pause to wonder, what am I doing? Where am I going? It's like on autopilot, in a hamster's wheel. You just keep going. Like you have the goals, you go full speed ahead in the wrong direction. And I'll just tell that it's in the very beginning of my book, the first few pages. I'm almost retelling them in a very loose format. So basically, there's this one dialogue in a book that I really love. It's a book by Mikhail Bulgakov, Master and Margarita. It's a Russian book, actually, and they have this main character who's in essence devil, and he has a conversation with a guy who is a restaurant manager, and he says, "Your fish is rotten," and the restaurant manager says, "No, it just came yesterday. And it was second degree freshness," and the devil says, "No, there is just 1 degree of freshness first. Everything else is rotten." It's first and the last. Everything is rotten. So, in my opinion, there is only 1 degree of authenticity, the first one.
Yeah.
So, if in my case, I was living a lie, but not 100% a lie, just 5% lie.
Right. Right.
And if it was 100%, yes, but the 5% of a lie, you pretend, you don't speak up, you sell your soul a little bit here, a little bit there. It's 5% a lie. The rest of it is true. But just like with that fish, I believe there's just 1 degree of authenticity, and everything else is rotten. And I didn't want rotten authenticity. So that's how you get lost. You can compromise a little bit, not on a grand scale. You don't fully like betray yourself, but just a little bit here and there, and that's enough to get lost.
Yeah, it sure is, especially and I keep relating to that because there's so much that that's what I'm saying. I do these podcasts, and for me, it's been like a 2-year journey. Every podcast recording, even if we're returning for the second one, lends weight to each learning experience, or sometimes reflects a mirror back. Because as this evolved and as I experienced the success of it and I keep expanding, those are the things one of the things you want to do is you start seeing these, inspiring influencers, or this is the way it's supposed to look. Then you start imitating. But yet when I go back and I stop and I take a breather, everything that got me this far was being authentically who I was, even if it was scary in those moments.
I don't like absolutes. And I'll bring another analogy with art, because that's what I studied as a kid. When you study art, you study by imitating the great masters. The greatest master is nature. You go out and you draw or you paint whatever you see, and then you sometimes make copies of other painters and artists' works. That's to get the skill, to get the professional quality of an artist. But art starts when you express yourself. So I know it's not very nice of me to say so, but very often when I see art which is very good in technique but lacks inspiration, for example, somebody draws exactly the same theme over and over and over again. It's not a study of a theme; it's just the same picture, essentially, a little take from here and there. I call it handicrafts because it's about skill. Art is genius. Art is departing from that. So like Picasso, he could draw perfectly, but his genius was so bizarre that some people say that you don't need an art education to paint like that. Well, if you look at his earlier works, he did paint like very conventionally. So I don't think there's anything wrong per se in imitating other masters. It's just important to remember that while you are imitating, you're just learning the art, you're learning the skill, you're learning to be professional. But if you want to create a masterpiece, you have to let go and trust yourself. And maybe defy all the convention. Maybe, or maybe not.
Well, I love that, Kristina, because what I was saying is exactly in line. As you launch a book and as I launch a platform, there's amazing alignment in a lot of these things. And like I said, my podcast guests and these special people like yourself that show up become mirror reflections for me to at least probably think deeper or reflect deeper on the journey. But I can only imagine now, what I wanted to ask you, I'm probably... Did you do here's one of the things that I want to leave with. Did you enjoy the book so much that you would that you're thinking of releasing more books, or is that all left in the future to figure out when that time gets there and you get the inspiration hit?
I do have an idea for my next book. I definitely missed the process of writing the book. I enjoyed writing the book very much. And I'd like to write another book, but I was waiting for it to come organically like the first one. I'm not going to be releasing books because that's what industry expects me to do. I fortunately have co-founded a good enough company to sustain me so that I don't need to sell my soul. But I have an idea what I want to write about next. It is coming. It is a habit, and I do think once you get into that, you keep doing this. So when I have my spells of playing musical instruments, then I start obsessively playing everything everywhere. or when I get my spells of drawing, I draw everything everywhere. So right now I have a spell of writing, but I'm not. I haven't started writing a new book because we are editing this one, and I want to give this current book full attention before I move to the next one.
Wow. Kristina, I'm pretty sure by the time that I release this book, I'll have read, by the time I have released this podcast, I'll have read your book. And I'm pretty sure with just what you were able to share with us today and my audience and the examples, I mean, this is going to be something very phenomenal. And I really commend you, of course, for stepping into this place of true expression and allowing your authenticity to really come out in not even just the content of the book, but even how you are going about like marketing it and standing in front of, so many different people sharing this and the process of it. So I just want to let the audience know, of course, Becoming Flawesome is going to hit the book stands. And I hope, of course, that you guys will, with everything that you've learned today, will go out and support Kristina's first book. What I'd like to ask Kristina, so for anyone that's ready to go ahead and either purchase this book or find out more about Kristina, what's the best way, of course, to get more information on that?
Well, first, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your kind words. I really appreciate what you just said. Thank you so much for that. We haven't started pre-sales at the moment when we are recording this podcast, but I do have a waiting list because I keep talking about it. So it's kristinama.com/book. We haven't started pre-sales because we are working with a pretty big publisher. I do hope to hit the New York Times bestsellers list. So it takes so much longer because it's so much more complicated.
Absolutely.
But hopefully by the end of the year, I'll be able to pre-sell. We have prepared a program. Actually, I've just recorded in July program, which people will get while they're waiting for the book. So that's another reason why we are slightly delayed on starting the whole big buzz.
No, thank you so much for that. And to the audience, I'll just let you know, depending on when this actual podcast will release, if, of course, you couldn't find it or it's not in pre-sale anymore and it's on sale, just please check, of course, the description box on any of these platforms. So then you can actually go ahead and get yourself a copy of Kristina's book, Becoming Flawesome. So thank you so much, Kristina, for being here again and sharing, of course, your amazing work and just even sharing with the audience about the work that you do. So you're always welcome here on the platform. And whenever you decide to release that next book, always know that you've got a place here and a voice on this platform.
You know, who knows how it's going to be? You know, when Lewis Carroll released his Alice in Wonderland, the Queen of England, sent him a message and said, next book that you release, I want to get the copy first. And because he was a mathematician, the next one was a mathematical work. So who knows?
Right? We don't know in this world of ever like so much change, but let's see how it goes. But of course, best of luck to you in the success of this new book. All right. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in to this week's episode, or this special episode, I should say, of 8 Billion Podcast. We look forward to having you and come back on the next one.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the 8 Billion Podcast. If it's moved you in any way, please share your thoughts or give us a review on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. To listen to more episodes, go to 8billionpodcast.com, or to learn more about our mission, go to 8billionproject.com.